All right, motherfucks. It's WrestleMania season officially. Personally, I like to start WrestleMania season around the time of the Go Home show before the Rumble, mother cucks. So that was last night. That was that Raw. So that means it's time for the early introduction of Hatermania 3, motherfucks. Hatermania 3. That means we're going to have a lot of videos. I'm going to try to do one video a day, every day, motherfucks, from now until WrestleMania somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'll probably take like one day and do like 15 videos or something. So I don't know, but we'll see, motherfucks. But starting today, it's going to be one video a day. You know what I mean? I guess starting yesterday, technically, because I put up a video yesterday. But you know what I mean. So this day, it's going to be an easy video because Raw was last night. So we're going to do this week's Raw review, motherfucks. Raw review. All right. Typically, I don't really enjoy watching Raw or reviewing it just because a lot of times there's nothing to talk about, you know? Nothing really happens. This week was no different. However, this week was interesting just because of the fact that, you know, it's the Go Home show, right? So like when nothing happens on the Go Home show, it's a bit different, you know? It hurts a little bit more, if you will, motherfucks. So let's get started talking about this, right? The show starts, Drew McIntyre comes out, cuts a promo on COVID. All right, good. He explains how he'll be wrestling Goldberg at Royal Rumble, and he starts talking about a new streak that Goldberg has amassed. So now I'm thinking he's going to talk about, you know, the fact that Goldberg keeps coming back and just keeps getting title shots year after year after year. But he doesn't do that. The new streak is that every time Goldberg challenges a champion, he wins and becomes the new champion, right? Nobody's just pointing out to the fact that like Goldberg can't just come back every Royal Rumble and do this, right? You know what I mean? Like there has to be some sort of limit. You know, every year he comes back and he's like, oh, I'm going to be in the main event. Like Goldberg has been at the past like 4 or 5 WrestleManias, I feel like, you know what I mean? And it's odd, motherfucks, it's odd. You know, I like Goldberg. Goldberg's awesome. I think he's better than almost everyone that they have in the current roster. But let's call it like it is, right? It's getting a little old, you know? Like this all started with The Rock and Cena back in the day when The Rock just like, you know, he interfered in Cena's match when he was the host of WrestleMania. And then afterwards, like the next year he was a wrestler, which was fine. You know, he came back and it was announced like a year in advance. And then after that, he beat CM Punk for the title at Royal Rumble. Now, no one was complaining. Like, I didn't give a shit about CM Punk. I was happy The Rock whooped his ass. But it's like, it set off that dangerous precedent of people just coming in around Royal Rumble and really taking up a spot. I mean, I hate to say it. I hate to sound like a smark. But really taking up a spot. Now, I'm not saying that, like, Goldberg being the champion takes up, like, a spot and it's, like, a huge problem, right? He does take up a spot, but it's also a benefit, right? Because when someone beats Goldberg at WrestleMania, you know, that's like a huge rub, you know what I mean? Like, that's like a huge thing that you can't really buy that. You can't really manufacture that either, you know what I mean? So imagine if, like, the champion going to WrestleMania was Dolph Ziggler and, you know, Drew McIntyre beats Dolph Ziggler, right? Who the fuck cares, you know what I mean? That sounds like a Raw main event. You know, it doesn't sound like a WrestleMania main event. But if someone beats Goldberg, you know, they get a nice boost to their name from that. Now, that applies to almost everyone. But not everyone, motherfucks. And that's kind of the real problem I have with Drew McIntyre and this promo, right? This promo reminds me of the shit year wrestling has had. You know, all things considered, COVID really fucked things up. I'm not going to sit here and pretend it didn't, right? But let's be real, motherfucks. This has been a horrible year in wrestling. Not because of the product has been inferior and the shows have been inferior. That too, of course. But just because of a lack of what I call storyline advancement, right? Like nothing has come of this year, right? This year could easily just not exist. You know, if we could time travel and go back to last year's WrestleMania with the same roster, you would see how basically everything is the same as it was. You know, everything is exactly where it was. Everyone is doing the exact same thing they were doing, right? And the only changes are irrelevant or negative. You know what I mean? So nonetheless, Goldberg comes out. The Miz and Morrison come out. One of the good things about this year was the return of Morrison to bring us Miz and Morrison back, just because, like, that's a nice little nostalgia act and they're fun, you know? Like, I like Miz and Morrison, you know? They come out and they talk some shit. They say that basically after Goldberg and Drew are done beating the shit out of each other, they're going to cash in the Money in the Bank, and Miz is going to become the champion. Correct. You know what I'm saying? Goldberg comes out and stereotypically has a little stare down with Drew, but then they all focus their attention on Miz and Morrison and hit a spear and a claymore on Miz and Morrison, respectively, I believe. And, you know, it's that classic, like, oh, I'll do you one better. You know what I mean? Where the one guy does a finisher and the other guy does a finisher to show him, like, yo, I'm still here, motherfucker. Then they face each other off. It wasn't very good. I mean, Goldberg is awesome, but in this case, like, Drew McIntyre should beat him clean, and it shouldn't even be an issue. Drew McIntyre is bigger than him, he's stronger than him, and he's younger than him. You know what I mean? Like, you can make the argument, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's true, motherfuckers. Drew McIntyre is a big boy. You can make the argument that Drew McIntyre in his prime could beat Goldberg in his prime. So there's absolutely no doubt that he can beat Goldberg now. Like, it's not even like feasible that Goldberg could beat him up. You know what I mean? Like, when it's Goldberg versus, like, Dolph Ziggler, all right, fine, you know, he might be able to do that. Dolph Ziggler is like about a foot shorter, you know, and like about 50 pounds lighter, you know, and not as strong. But Drew McIntyre is also bigger than him, so it's like, it's kind of ridiculous, you know what I mean? But it is what it is. I look forward to the match only because I know it's going to be about 3 minutes, and it's going to involve just a spamming of spears and claymores. So it was what it was. Then we see Charlotte Flair, and so she's going to be defending the tag team titles, and is going to be in the Rumble on Sunday. I mean, that's pretty cool, you know? Like, just seeing someone pull double duty on the Rumble is always awesome. Especially when, I mean, she's not going to win the Rumble because she won last year. But especially when there's someone that could potentially win. Like, remember how that one WrestleMania where Cesaro and, like, Jack Swagger were in, like, some tag team match and they lost? And then Cesaro went on to win the Andre the Giant Battle Royal. That was awesome because you didn't expect that. You know, you're like, oh, you already competed tonight. He's not going to win, you know? But he won, and that was pretty cool. So next up, we have the first circle jerk of the evening. It's Charlotte Flair versus Shayna Baszler, motherfuckers. Shayna Baszler. So, you know, Baszler puts on that Kirifuda clutch. Bunch of more shit happens. You know, Nia Jax interferes. Disqualification, right? So you're like, all right, thank God, mercifully, this garbage is over. But it ain't, motherfucks. It ain't. Charlotte Flair wins, I guess. No one says that she wins. I don't remember someone being like she wins and raising her hand. So it is what it is. The bad guys start beating her up. Mandy Rose and Dana come to, you know, save the day, if you will. So, of course, that leads into a 6-person tag team match, motherfucks. This finish is one of the worst finishes of all time. Shayna Baszler and Charlotte are fighting on the outside. Shayna throws Charlotte inside, misses the count in the most ridiculous way possible. So, the second match featuring Charlotte today ends, and Charlotte wins again. Then, we have another commercial up in this motherfucker. And, yeah. We restart the match again, motherfucks. 3 times, we restart this horseshit. This is not a match that I ever want to see, let alone 3 times. So this match starts, and it ends when Lacey Evans, Nia Jax, and Shayna Baszler win after Nia Jax hits the leg drop on Dana Brooke, who just a few months ago was like a comedy jobber. This was basically a complete waste of everyone's time. Then we see how Xavier Woods has been getting his ass kicked by different members of Retribution. Now, typically, I wouldn't give a shit about this, but I will say, insofar as having a storyline, this is one that makes sense. Mustafa Ali is justifiably upset that Kofi Kingston's greatest moment came after Mustafa Ali was injured. You know, Kofi Kingston stole his spot. So Kofi Kingston is gone, and now Ali is pissed off at his friend. Now here's the problem with this, right? Number one, Mustafa Ali, if he had any balls, right, he would be mad at the real culprit, Brock Lesnar. When Mustafa Ali was about to win the Money in the Bank, Brock Lesnar came, threw his bitch ass off the ladder, and got the title himself. You know what I mean? But let's be real. Despite the fact that Retribution has like 5 people, it would not be believable for them to go after Brock Lesnar the way they've been booked. Nor would it be believable for them to go after him in real life. Because in real life, Brock Lesnar would beat the shit out of all members of Retribution, probably at the same time. Let's be real. These guys are all a bunch of weirdos, you know what I'm saying? Like, I don't really like any of them anymore, you know? Dijakovic, I never really liked him. He had some great matches with Keith Lee. I always thought Keith Lee was the better one. but I never liked him because I don't know how to explain it. Like he's not. I don't want to use the word lanky because he's like a jacked guy. He's not like a pussy, you know. But let's be real. He and Mace, Dio Madden, whatever the fuck they call them now, they are just the word I use to describe them is misshapen. You know what I mean? They're just misshapen dudes. Like they don't come off as these like big like monsters. You know, they don't. They come off as these like weird like figure skater body having motherfucks. You know what I mean? So, which there's nothing wrong with that. You know, there's a place for that too. You know what I mean? But they don't come off as intimidating. Slapjack or whatever, Shane Thorne, when he started in WWE, when he was first signed, he was in incredible shape. This guy was jacked. He was cut as a mug. Now he's a little chubby. And then we have Ali, who obviously is the worst member of Retribution. Like, Ali shouldn't even be in this company. Ali sucks. This guy is garbage, you know? And furthermore, he's one of those cucks, you know? Like, even in this promo, he was like, WWE didn't know how to make a buck off of a guy named Mustafa Ali. Dude, just consider the truth, you know? The facts are the facts. You know, Mustafa Ali is not held back because he's Pakistani or whatever, or of Pakistani descent. He's held back because he's shit. The fact that he's of Pakistani descent has only helped him get a job. Because if Mustafa Ali was white or black or Hispanic, you know, he would be like Lince Dorado if he was Hispanic. If he was white, he probably wouldn't be employed. And if he was black, he also probably wouldn't be employed. You understand what I'm saying? So the fact that he is like a minority in wrestling, like, you know, you got white people in wrestling, obviously. You got black people in wrestling. You got a lot of Hispanics in wrestling. You don't really have that many like Indian people, Pakistani people, subcontinent people, right? So it's like he's the best they can do. You know, so this guy has clearly, like, it's so obvious that he's benefited from the fact that he is of, like, Pakistani descent or whatever the fuck he is, right? It's so obvious. Like, he doesn't have any talent to back up, to justify the fact that he's there. You know what I mean? And certainly, even if you could make the argument that it's like, all right, they could hire him, they could have an extra hand. You know, he sure as shit isn't a better wrestler than anyone on 205 Live. He's not better than anyone in a Lucha House Party, or as a matter of fact, better than any Latino with a mask currently employed by WWE. He's not, but he is higher in the card. And the reason he's higher in the card is not because of any ability that he has. It is 100% because he fits a role, right? He fits the role of this guy might draw with like the huge Indian audience, right? That's the only reason he's there, you know? The only reason he's employed is because of like his ethnicity, right? It has nothing to do with his talent. So for him to switch that up and pretend that he's held down because of the only reason he has a job is just disrespectful to any wrestler that hasn't gotten there that way, in my opinion. Mustafa Ali is a piece of shit, and he is not entertaining at all, you know? Next up, so as a result, we have Slapjack versus Xavier Woods. Who the fuck cares? Xavier Woods wins with a shining wizard. Xavier Woods is shit too. This match is a waste of time. This match shouldn't be on TV. This is the kind of match that TNA should be having on TNA Impact, like in the present day. You know what I mean? Like, that's the level of match we have here. No one gives a fuck. Who gives a flying shit about any of this? They attack Xavier after the match. Mustafa Ali explains how, like, you know, he's going to be in the Rumble now. Who the fuck cares about Mustafa Ali? He's not going to win the Rumble. This guy's like one foot out the door, let's be honest. Then we have Matt Riddle and R-Truth have a segment together, all right? More on R-Truth later, motherfucks. But R-Truth says some shit about the Hurt Business, and then we eventually get to commercial break. Then we learn that Bad Bunny, who's like, I don't know if he's Puerto Rican or like Mexican, or he's some sort of Latino rapper, he's going to be performing at Royal Rumble. Now, I know about Bad Bunny because I have a friend who really likes like reggaeton or whatever the fuck he makes. So I've heard of this guy, right? And I've seen him in music videos that my friend has shown me. But I've always thought he was a dweeb. You know what I mean? He, like, look at my video about Undertaker and how I speak about Joey Janela and Xavier Woods and Mustafa Ali. He is on the same level, except not in wrestling. He's a nerd, right? He's not a cool guy. He's a dweeb who bought like a keyboard and decided to make music. He sucks. You know, but I will say this. It turns out that he made a song called Booker T. You know what I mean? So to me, that is a clear indicator of two things happening at the Royal Rumble. Number one, Booker T will obviously be a surprise entrant, yes. And he will be introduced by Bad Bunny in a live performance. That's what's going to happen. It's going to be awesome. Booker T is great. All right. So they announced that. No one else gives a fuck. MVP and the Hurt Business come out. They're kind of like supporting MVP and like the fact that he's made them like actually have careers now when they were jobbers a few months ago, which is true. MVP has really revitalized the careers of these three men. And Cedric Alexander continues to like bicker with Shelton Benjamin. Now, aside from the fact that this isn't realistic, you know, it also seems to have no purpose. You know what I mean? What's going to come of this, right? If they're going to have like an inter-tag team war, if they're going to start feuding with each other, do it now. You know what I'm saying? Do it now. Don't push it any further. I mean, obviously what's going to happen now is like if they make it to the Royal Rumble match, which who knows, right? They're going to eliminate each other, right? And like that's just, you know, overdone. But it's not realistic because in reality, Shelton Benjamin would just bitch slap Cedric Alexander in the face and that would be the end of that. Simple as that. A person like Shelton Benjamin is not going to listen to a person like Cedric Alexander. They are two different species of human. You understand what I'm saying? Cedric Alexander, you can tell he's kind of a bitch, and Shelton Benjamin is not a bitch. So in reality, Shelton would kick him in the face and would say, shut the fuck up, know your place, bitch, and that's what would happen. But here we are. This is wrestling, so we can pretend that Cedric Alexander is a tough guy, or when he's probably one of those video game players, you know what I'm saying? Then, there's like the R-Truth segment continues. R-Truth comes out and like just does some comedy shit with the Hurt Business. It actually isn't bad. He gets chased by all the people that won his title. And we go to commercial break once again, motherfucks. You know what I mean? Then we have R-Truth kind of gets into a little confrontation. What's it called? With AJ Styles. And AJ Styles is like, basically AJ Styles' new role, it seems, on Monday night now, is to like prevent people from going to the Royal Rumble, which I actually think is kind of clever. You know what I mean? It's like a good storyline for someone leading up to the Rumble, right? A guy that prevented people from entering the match, like a guy that's taking it seriously. You know? So as a result, I think that match gets made or some shit. Then we have John Morrison versus Sheamus. Sheamus wins a pretty decent match considering like, you know, it was pretty clear Sheamus was going to win, but a pretty decent match. Like Sheamus and John Morrison are both all right. You know, they both deserve their jobs. Let's put it that way, motherfucks. So basically, Sheamus wins with the white noise, and this leads, of course, to Sheamus versus Miz and Morrison handicap match at the same damn time, right? Eventually, skull-crushing finale. Sheamus gets pinned. What's it called? Miz and Morrison come out on top, kind of, right? Then they show Ric Flair hanging out with Lacey Evans. Charlotte comes and talks some shit. You know what I'm saying? She says he's an old bag and he was never there for the family. No one really cares. Then we have AJ Styles versus R-Truth, which I thought was fantastic. I have been singing the praises of R-Truth for decades. R-Truth is one of the most underrated wrestlers of all time. R-Truth is better than almost everyone on the Raw roster. He is better than almost everyone on the SmackDown roster. He is in fact so good that he can do the most ridiculous comedy gimmick, the most ridiculous and absurd comedy nonsense, and still be over. And not just be over with the casual fans and like the nerds, but also with the smarts. Everyone loves R-Truth. And R-Truth and AJ Styles had an incredible match, proving that R-Truth is on that level. He is on the same level as AJ Styles in terms of his athleticism and his in-ring ability. You know, I don't want to hear anyone say WWE ruined Bobby Roode. WWE doesn't know what to do with Mustafa Ali. WWE ruined Nakamura. No, you can say all that shit, all that horse shit, after you accept the reality that the only person that you can make a real argument that was ruined by WWE is R-Truth. R-Truth deserves more than those people. R-Truth is a better wrestler than Bobby Roode. R-Truth is a better wrestler than Nakamura. He's more charismatic than both of them combined, right? He has a better physique than both of them, right? He is more athletic than both of them. He has a more interesting appeal than both of them. Like, he is better than these guys at everything that he does. He's funnier. Everything he does is better than like 99% of the wrestlers they have on the roster, right? I don't want to fucking hear how Dolph Ziggler has been ruined by the company. No. R-Truth is better than Dolph Ziggler. And guess what? Because R-Truth isn't a pussy who goes out there and bitches and moans, they ruined me. I don't like what happened. Dax Harwood and the other fat one in FTR. Like WWE ruined us. We're the best tag team. He doesn't go out there and self-congratulates himself, but it doesn't matter, motherfucks. The facts are the facts. It doesn't matter if every neckbeard out there thinks that like Kenny Omega and FTR are the future of wrestling. It doesn't matter. The facts are the facts. The truth is the truth. And R-Truth, motherfucks, is the man. So I really enjoyed seeing R-Truth get like actual TV time with a match. Right, the match was pretty great. AJ Styles obviously wins with a calf crusher, but it was cool anyways. R-Truth did some awesome things. Another thing that I really like about R-Truth is now that he does the little what's it called, like backdrop power bomb thing, right? The John Cena backdrop power bomb, and does the "you can't see me," the 5-knuckle shuffle, and then even tries to hit the AA for his childhood hero John Cena. Even though I'm pretty sure R-Truth is older than Cena. R-Truth is incredible, man. R-Truth is awesome. You know, if there's any person in wrestling that deserves that Mark Henry run. You know what I mean? You know when Mark Henry became serious and became champion, or like when Christian became champion? If there's anyone that deserves that kind of title run, it's not fucking Kofi Kingston. It's not Kofi Kingston, motherfucks. It's R-Truth, who is better than Kofi Kingston at literally every element that is involved in wrestling. He is cooler. He is better looking. He has a better physique. He's better in the ring. He's more charismatic. He's funnier. He doesn't have a weird face. You know, his pecs aren't weird like Kofi Kingston, and he doesn't have to embarrass himself to. Well, he does embarrass himself, but he doesn't have to be over, right? The fact, and he's older too, so it's like, how is this even possible? How did Kofi Kingston become the guy that was held back? You know, what happened to R-Truth? You know, like it's the most ridiculous. It's the greatest injustice of all time. You know, this people pretending that Kofi Kingston deserves it when people like R-Truth are out there not getting their actual chance. You know, R-Truth looks better now than Kofi Kingston did 10 years ago, motherfucks. R-Truth is like in better shape than Kofi Kingston ever has been or ever will be. He's better in the ring. He's more athletic, but that's neither here nor there. Let's move on. Cucks. You know what I'm saying? Eventually, we have Alexa's Playground. Who the fuck cares? All right? I have a lot to say about this, but I'll wait until that segment happens on the fucks. Then we have the Hurt Business in a gauntlet match against Matt Riddle. So the first part is like an actual match. Matt Riddle versus Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin has him pinned, but Cedric Alexander, who sucks, causes a distraction, leads Matt Riddle to rolling up Shelton Benjamin. Then, as they're fighting outside, they're arguing outside, MVP goes in the ring, boom, gets cucked. You know what I'm saying? Gets caught with like a little heel hook type of shit, and he submits. So now it's Cedric Alexander versus, what's it called? Matt Riddle, right, basically. If Matt Riddle wins, he will become El Champion. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. He gets eliminated like a motherfucker. And there we are. Matt Riddle wins. Matt Riddle will now get a title shot, it looks like. Now, I believe he's going to get a title shot at Royal Rumble. It only makes sense, but who the fuck knows, right? Then we have an update on Edge's injury. And just like everyone thought, Edge is now in the Royal Rumble. He pretty much cuts a long promo about how, like, you cannot look back or some horseshit. And he's in the Rumble. That's all that matters here, you know? Edge is in the Rumble. Edge is probably going to win the Rumble at this point. I don't see anybody else winning it. People are saying Daniel Bryan, but that just seems like a waste of time to me. That just seems like a waste. Like, Daniel Bryan should be fired, you know? Like, nobody gives a fuck about Daniel Bryan. Edge is the right way to go. Edge is the right way to go. Somehow you make Randy Orton the champion. Prior to that, Edge wins. Orton versus Edge, WrestleMania. Deal with it, motherfucks. So there you go. Also, it's kind of weird that, like, that Edge wants to come back to the Rumble, but he doesn't really... I mean, I guess his feud with Orton, like, kayfabe-wise, is kind of over, right? Like, Orton won the match. There's really no reason for Edge to be bitter anymore. Like, he got his revenge, and then he had the match, and Orton won, so it is what it is, you know? Then we had Asuka versus Alexa Bliss for the Raw Women's Championship. Okay, pause, motherfucks. Pause. This has to be said. The horseshit writing and the horseshit booking of The Fiend has now gotten to a point where it's affecting other wrestlers in the women's division. All right, Alexa Bliss, I never really thought that she was this great wrestler, but there was something there. You know what I mean? Like, there is an element of entertainment that one gets from Alexa Bliss, you know? You look at Alexa Bliss and you're like, all right, there's a kind of a gimmick here. Some shit's going down, you know? Not when she was like tagging with, what's it called, with Nikki Cross, right? But, you know, before that, when she was like just like heel, that was great, you know? And now, this kind of garbage. She's wrestling Asuka. All of a sudden, Asuka goes from this like fearless, like killer, this absolute killer she was booked as, right? Now she's champion, and she's like afraid of this fucking nonsense. Like, Alexa Bliss is like 5 foot. She's not even like 5'2". She's 5 foot, motherfucks. And all of a sudden, Asuka is terrified of her, right? Because eventually Alexa Bliss, like, has the little change, right? And becomes like evil Alexa Bliss, where her clothes change, you know, through a camera trick. Her clothes change, right? Basically, they yell cut, and they edit that part in. You know what I mean? Her clothes change, and everyone's like, oh, what the fuck's going on? You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, like the fucking Tom Phillips or whatever. Is it Tom Phillips? I don't know, that cuck. The new Michael Cole guy, right? He's like, oh, I don't know what's happening. And then eventually, she like starts crying. Alexa Bliss starts crying because the lights go out again, and she reverts back to her like normal self. And Tom Phillips is like, oh my God, it's the goddess, right? Like, now she's now the goddess again because that was her last gimmick. So it's like, oh, she's not doing this horseshit. So now she must be in her last gimmick, cuck. And that's what happens. And this is something that I have to watch and pretend is realistic. So about this time, I'm thinking to myself, I don't see Asuka losing here, obviously, because Alexa Bliss has been announced as being in the Royal Rumble. So she's not going to be the champion and also be in the Royal Rumble, right? Because she's not fucking Brock Lesnar, motherfuckers. So I'm pretty sure that either Asuka's going to win or it's going to be some sort of screwy finish. So at this point, I'm thinking Randy Orton should come in and punt her in the head. That's the only thing that makes sense. You know, Randy Orton cannot tolerate having fire thrown at him, right? So that's what happens. Randy Orton comes out and RKO's Alexa Bliss eventually. And the match just ends. Like the show just ends, I should say, right? Nothing happened. Like, there was no one raised Alexa's hand, like saying she won by DQ. No one said she won by DQ. The focus is just quickly shifted away from the women's champion, Asuka, right? To Randy Orton's ongoing feud with the man that he burned alive. Think about this for a second. Think about this. The emotionally scarred guy who's now wearing a mask and was burned by this weird girl last week, burned the retarded guy alive, and he's still feuding with the burned and dead retarded guy. Think about what I just said, motherfucks. That's what's happening on Raw. And this brings me to my main point, motherfucks. Raw is shit. You understand me? I do not like Raw at all. But because I said that we are now in Hatermania 3, motherfucks, the road to Hatermania, I will leave my discussion of why wrestling sucks ass and why wrestling this year has had the worst year ever for the next video, motherfucks. So that would probably be tomorrow's video, cucks. All right, with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this Raw review. I give it a 2 out of 10, one of the worst Raws I've ever seen in my life. Secondary only to last week's Raw. And maybe even the one before that, actually. They were all shit. Ever since Alexa Bliss has started like having Fiend superpowers, Raw has been garbage. You know, the Fiend thing is retarded. Anyone that's writing this should be fired immediately. They don't know what they're doing. They're not good writers. They're not creative people. They're just a bunch of neckbeards. So with that being said, this Raw gets a prestigious 2 stars out of 10. And everyone else can go and kiss my ass, motherfucker.